Greetings, Mzansi, and welcome to a very special edition of our Afternoon Express Cook-Along. I'm Palisa Tembe, and today we're being joined by an incredibly inspirational Chief Operations Officer of McDonald's South Africa. This is none other than Joanne de Wet and her beautiful family. Now, we'll be meeting her husband, Denver, and her sons, Matthew, Brent, Daniel, and Antonio, as we create a culinary family affair. We'll be making lamb chops and biltong pasta, fluffy flapjacks, as well as learning how to whip up our very own homemade MacD's burger. So please do head over to afternoonexpress.co.za right now to get the full recipe and ingredients list so you can cook along with us at home. But for now, it is time to introduce my favorite family from McDonald's South Africa. It is Joanne de Wet and her beautiful boys. Welcome to the loft.
Thank you.
I should actually rather say at this stage, welcome back to the loft, because at this stage, we are all just such a big family. So much so that I'm ready to sign those adoption papers. Joanne, thank you so much for joining us and bringing not only Denver, but the sons. I mean, seeing you just grow and develop, especially through 2020, has been quite a journey. As soon as I said that, we had someone being like, listen, I'm about to dive all into those details because I want to find out from you, Matthew. I know it is your birthday as well, celebrating it. What made you just react so dramatically when I spoke about 2020 and COVID?
At the beginning of lockdown, I mainly just watched video games, and then my dad got table tennis and a dartboard for us, which we usually played in the morning. We would always compete with each other.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, Joanne, I have to find out from you, when you're not heading up the operations at McDonald's SA, you've got the mommy hat on. So
Yes.
How has it been during lockdown?
It's been an interesting experience during lockdown. I think we definitely appreciated the quality of a little bit of family time that we've had in comparison to a traditional working environment. So that, I think, was quite different to what I'm pretty much used to.
Absolutely. And for you, Denver, I mean, you would know best of all. Was Joanne able to relax during lockdown?
Good question. I think a day normally started around about 8:30 and it finished around about after 7. I think that was the latest. So between the Zoom calls and the team meetings, there was usually about 10 to 15 minutes break, which you, for example, play a game with us. Or during that time, we started with intermittent fasting.
Okay.
So I would prepare meals and she would just come rush down after 12 to have something to eat.
We were conscious that we may not be as active as normal. And it was important for us to make sure that we were conscious about what we were consuming, but at the same time, making sure that we were physically active during the entire period as well.
So I have to find out then from the gents, how did you all feel about this decision? As much as we are going to be cooking along with South Africans all at home throughout this entire episode of our Tuesday Cook Along, when it came to the kitchen and whipping it up, who is the best chef in your opinion? And how did that intermittent fasting and that diet for you and that lifestyle essentially work? Maybe from you, Brent?
I know, my mom is probably the best cook in the house. I wouldn't give it to my dad. But my mother is the best cook in the house, so yeah, I'd hand it over to her all in.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is a good mommy test. And all the mothers out there, I want to find out if you could answer the same question. If you could pick one dish that is just a resounding favorite in the household of the de Wets, what would that be?
I probably wouldn't put it onto one dish. I'll add two. So one would be the lamb chops that we'll be preparing today. The other one is just a good curry, is something that I'd probably add.
Gentlemen, is it a resounding yes?
It's a resounding yes.
Antonio, why did you take so long to put up your hand? Oh, that is so cute. But I have to also go into just the family dynamics. Not only did lockdown give you an opportunity to bond as a family, whether it's in the kitchen or gaming, you also had a very good opportunity just to introspect within yourselves as an individual. And I want to find out from the boys. School was on pause. Work was on pause. So how did you all feel during those times? Were you frustrated? Were you able to find a way of release and just escape and get out of the body and enjoy life again? Daniel?
No, I thought it was fun. Brothers did their own thing. They sort of did their own thing. Everybody was sort of in their rooms, I don't know, doing their own thing. Schooling was fun because it just went online.
Yeah.
You did some of that pre-COVID as well. So that the transition was fine.
Are you very disciplined at school? And did everything that you...
Yes.
Self-disciplined? Father, Denver, in terms of self-discipline, what did you experience within the boys? And have you seen some growth there?
Funny enough, with my youngest, I spend most of the time with him. When we started with the online schooling, I could actually see in terms of his progress, in terms of monitoring his progress. With the others, in terms of, I would just wake them up and tell them, listen, it's time to go on online schooling. If I became bored, I would ask them in terms of, listen, about a game of table tennis. I knew it was becoming frustrating. You read about lockdown stress, so you don't want the kids to sit in the room and watch television the whole time. At least go outside and do some activities together as a family. I think that was important to just keep the sanity.
I'm so glad that they have a father like yourself within the household that's able to keep the eye on the prize and make sure that everyone's well-being is being taken care of. In terms of self-care, how important was that for you, Joanne?
I think it was important for me, but I think, kudos to Denver to make sure that I didn't lose sight of that, because I think there was a moment in time where you got so embedded in just doing work. So even though lockdown may have existed, we were still operating a business in a virtual environment. And I think Denver always just sort of reminded me and kept that, constantly elevated the consciousness around self-care. Whether it was 15 minutes of up and down the staircase, whether it was the table tennis games or something that we enjoyed, just 30 seconds, or dominoes, which we probably landed up playing more than what we ever would have outside of lockdown.
Brother, let's have a one-on-one.
Okay, I'm listening.
Before all of you, all the others followed, before you got the entourage,
I had 7 years to myself.
That's what I'm talking about. How did you feel during those 7 years? Were you just completely dominating your space as the only child? And when you did hear the news about your darling brother coming along, how did that make you feel? Were you like, yes, finally, I've got a partner in crime? Or were you just like, the spotlight's gone?
Yeah, it was like that, a bit of that. I couldn't believe another person's coming in my life now. Why? Yeah, it's Daniel. It was Daniel, and at least he was there to help me.
Wow, Daniel, how does that sound?
Feels good, at least.
Yeah.
The answer's better than what I expected.
So wait, so what did you expect?
I thought you were going to say it was wrong, knowing you. That's something you'd say.
Now, Matt, when you do look at your older brothers, how inspired do you become? It is your birthday today, and I believe birthdays are a perfect moment to reflect, reset your goals, and, strategize going forward for this new year of life. So when you do see Brent, Daniel, and even Antonio, I do believe that the little ones can be inspirational too. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel really good because I really do look up to them. They can be my role models at times, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So we've got a Brent, we've got a Daniel, we've got a Matthew, but then we've got an Antonio. We have got a little Casanova, I can say. I love the name. Mommy, do you want to break down the name for us and why essentially it just has a different mood and a different feel to the older three?
I think, to be very honest, I wasn't expecting to have, and I don't think we were expecting to have Antonio. So the first thing that came to mind is another baby. So if you understand what Antonio means, in Italian, Antonio means baby, so that sort of came to mind. And please don't underestimate the size or the fact that he's the youngest amongst the troops, but he's a little bit of a silent dominator.
Okay, so you've got a strong personality, hey, Antonio? I love that about you. So strong. I want to find out the story about being the individual that you are. The boys have curly hair, straight hair, long hair. You decided you ain't got no hair. Why don't you have hair, my boy?
What did you do?
I got...
What happened?
What did you put in your hair?
I put bubble gum and then
You put bubble gum in your hair. Did you fall asleep? Was it in your mouth and it fell in your hair?
Yes.
can't remember.
You can't remember. So then what? Okay, when you're now faced with this predicament, Mama, what do you then do? Do you decide it all has to go?
So the funny thing is, he first decided it's got to go, because we've got a camera in our kitchen, and Denver saw one night, I think at what time was it?
It was past 12 to 1, and I was monitoring why is somebody up so late. So I saw somebody in the kitchen standing in front of the oven trying to cut the hair. So he looked at his reflection in the oven, and then he was starting to cut his hair. And then I decided, no, something has to be done in terms of, this massive patch over here that was gone. And I started cutting his hair. Then I actually asked the eldest to do the final cut in terms of I can't cut as perfectly as this, but the eldest...
I must cut it, Moose.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so you are coming for every single barber in the city. I love that.
That is me.
So, Dad, you know, as much as there was a lot of fun and games during lockdown, and we will, trust me, South Africa, we will get to the games, there was also a very serious side of lockdown, where unfortunately, one by one, the family got infected by COVID-19. So just from the self-isolation to the actual medication, taking care of yourself and making sure you bounce back to health. How did that journey look like for you, Baba?
Well, I was the first one to be infected, and I was frustrated in terms of now suddenly, after being together as a troop, now suddenly I'm in the room alone.
Yeah.
I found it frustrating. You know, there was a sense of joy when I found out Joanne was infected.
Very honest.
There's someone else with me in terms of, because nobody comes to you and spends time with you. It's like, there's a plague in the room, please don't enter. They leave the food outside, you have to go out to fetch the food. So when Joanne became infected, I felt, I must admit, there was a sense of joy in terms of, you with me now.
You know when they say when two become one,
This is
hey?
a very honest family.
Quite literally. So then, gentlemen, another son, was it Matthew?
Yes.
You also got COVID-19. So then as the middle child somewhere, finding your way in this entirely big, beautiful family, how then were you able to bounce back from COVID-19?
I was always on a FaceTime with my friends, which helped me a lot, so I wasn't as bored as I would have been.
Absolutely. And quite physically, how did that feel on you? And now that you're back to your complete health, I'm sure you are counting your blessings.
Definitely counting my blessings, but I think the one thing that I found quite unique through the experience, obviously having been infected as well, is the fact that I felt fine for most of the time until I went through a stage where I was just exhausted. And, you know, I'd actually work, and then around about 1 p.m. in the afternoon, I'd say to Denver, you know, I just want to take a rest, but then 4 hours later, I'd wake up. So the one thing that was very apparent for me was a bit of exhaustion and a bit of, you know, tight chest is what I've experienced. But I do think that, you know, the type of activities and the fact that we don't have any underlying medical conditions really was beneficial for me, and I'll probably say the same to Denver and Matthew at the time as well.
Absolutely. It was amazing to bounce back in sense of getting your health back. Coming up, the DeWitt family show us the table tennis skills they mastered during lockdown.